Mark, in the meantime, why don't you hit us with a recap of the events of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, number 66.
All right, Dan, here we go. Syra and Calyx are still reeling from their recent defeat to Spider-Man. Calyx because he just can't believe he lost, and Syra who just can't move past how different Spider-Man is as a champion than Doctor Strange. Peter, meanwhile, is still wallowing in his nihilism and hedonism, blowing off the likes of Randy, Aunt May, and Shay, and of course, his Spider-Man duties, because what's the point of it all? He's essentially pulling a Brad Pitt from Ocean's 11 and eating his way through these comics. It's so bad that Peter is even present for a stick-up at a bodega, and he just tells the criminal, "Why are you doing this?" When Spider shows up to save the day, Peter is like, "Hey, aren't you 8?" Which, to be fair, is how we all should be dealing with Spider-Boy. He then bumps into Shay in Times Square, who is one of the few women in his life to actually establish some boundaries with him, essentially telling him to get it together with some professional help, and that she'll see him around once he can figure out his priorities. Speaking of priorities and professional help, Peter does make a stop by his unlicensed therapist, Felicia Hardy, where he starts to get a little frisky with Black Cat. Is this enough to cure Peter out of his nihilistic funk? Only time in 2 weeks will tell. Calyx then wanders outside the protection of Sidorak's casket, and boy, my secret scroll sense is tingling. Then Calyx discovers something he wasn't meant to find. Tentacle porn! I mean tentacles! Yes, there is some kind of light, and it attaches itself to Calyx, and yep, we are firmly in the territory of secret skulls here. We are approaching the third act of a major Spider-Man story, and a brand new mystical MacGuffin is introduced, and out of nowhere could potentially derail this whole thing. Never change, Spider Office, never change. Speaking of unhealthy patterns of behavior from the Spider Office, we join Juggernaut and the X-Men, who are assembling, because if I learned anything from the Sin Eater storyline, modern Spider-Man stories are always made better by Juggernaut. Get me pictures of Juggernaut Spider-Man. Apparently, if Spider-Man isn't going to take on the challenge of the Scions, the X-Men will. And that is where we are.